Welcome to Beauty and the Biz. Discover how to grow your practice with effective cosmetic patient attraction, conversion, and retention advice from author, speaker, trainer, and cosmetic practice business and marketing coach, Catherine Maley, MBA.
Hello, and welcome to Beauty and the Biz, where we talk about the business and marketing side of cosmetic practices. I'm your host, Catherine Maley, author of Your Aesthetic Practice, What Your Patients Are Saying, as well as consultant to cosmetic practices to get them more patients and more profits. So today's episode is called Patient Flow. It's about the patient experience from start to finish, because here's what I know for sure. The most successful practices focus on certain things that help them beat the competition and be the market leader in their area. Because when you focus on these fundamentals, you're going to get more patients, more procedures, more revenues, and with minimal time and effort. So here's a mantra that I live by, and I hope you do too. The key to success is not doing more. It's doing more of what works. I have watched practices over and over spend an absolute fortune on focusing on only one thing, and that is new patients. That's all they want. I want new patients from the internet. Everyone who calls me says, I need more patients. And that's all they want to talk about. But quite frankly, that's where the lost profits are every day, every month, every year. Because here's what happens. When your focus is only on new patients, you end up spending a fortune redesigning your website again. And I'm not saying you shouldn't. I mean, you can't look like old school anymore. You'll look outdated. But you also, do you really need a $50,000 website? I don't know, maybe you do. But so you throw a bunch of months and money into that, redesigning it. And then you've got to have a hosting service, and that's another, whatever it is, $1,000 or $2,000 a month. Then you've got to have somebody doing your SEO for organic search. And that, it hasn't died, but it's definitely not the key thing going on. But you still need to do that. And that's, another couple thousand a month. And then you've got to have somebody writing this content. Either you're spending your own valuable time writing content, or you've got to pay someone else to do it. And same thing with social media. You either have to spend your valuable time doing that yourself, or you've got to pay somebody to do it. So here's what happens. You're throwing all this money at new leads, and you're saying, oh my God, this place is going to be great. I'm going to be so busy. It's going to be packed. And I know that's what you want. You want a nice, busy reception area with the phones ringing, and you want to be running exam room to exam room. And I know that makes you feel good. It makes all of us feel good. The issue is, just because you're busy doesn't mean you're profitable. So then what happens is, oftentimes it's not working, or it's not working like you wanted it to. So now you're frustrated and you're cynical. Now you say, oh, this stuff doesn't work. And then oftentimes you just give up. But you have to go somewhere in between doing everything all the time and not doing anything at all. Because here's the truth. The prospective patient leads that you get, they need help. Can you imagine being a consumer today looking for a solution? Let's just take the example like tummy. A lot of us have a tummy. And sometimes it's just a little pooch. Sometimes there were a bunch of kids involved. And now they have fat hanging over, it's not just fat, it's also skin, and on and on. Can you imagine trying to decide how to choose, first of all, the procedure that you need, and then who's going to do that procedure? It's a really big deal. So they've been thinking about this forever, but now when you start really looking at and doing the research, you get more confused because there are so many opposing views about what to do for each procedure. Should it be surgical? Should it be non-surgical? And it goes on, that they truly need a professionally trained staff guiding them through their journey to a yes. So with that, I'd like to look at the 5-step flow of the leads that come in. So we'll start with the leads that are coming from, let's say the prospective patient is on your website, so they fill out that I'm ready for a consultation. Or maybe you have an opt-in box that says, ask a question, so they fill that out. Or maybe they see you on social media and they direct message you. Well, what happens then? Because here's what the stats have shown when it comes to following up. 48% of practices never even follow up. And then the average first follow-up is 72 hours later. In today's crazy world where everything is instant, 72 hours is a lifetime in social media and in the internet. So if you're going to do this, you have got to be on your game. So that's another issue. Now, how do you stay responsive to these leads coming in? Well, oftentimes you need a practice cell phone and it's notifying you the minute somebody reaches out to you. But then what happens to the cell phone after hours? Like, is somebody taking it home? What happens on the weekends? And on and on. You have to figure that out because there's nothing simple about that. But let's say the prospective patient actually picked up the phone and called you. That is a super big deal. I would call that a hot prospect because they're the most qualified, especially because of technology. They didn't have to call you. They could have just texted you or emailed you, but instead, they're serious enough where they stopped what they were doing, picked up the phone to call you. But what happens when that happens? So hopefully, your goal is to answer the phone within 3 rings with a human being. Otherwise, if it's not, guess what happens? Because we do a ton of mystery shopping. We get answering services, which are horrendous. By the way, so many of you still use the old antiquated medical answering services, and they're awful. They've never heard the words customer service. There are so many new friendly receptionist services that you can use. Please, if you're going to do it, please use a good one. Or they immediately put you on hold, or maybe the prospective patient hears the phone tree from hell. Those are awful. Those are for your convenience, not for the patient's. And if your phones are that busy, you better figure out how to triage those calls. And I have a lot of options for that, but we're not going to go into that here. But you have to think about a patient with a credit card. They're not going to put up with shoddy service if you're asking them for cash. They expect service and they want it. And then when they do, have a conversation with your receptionist, you have to really understand, like, did they get what they wanted from that? Because your staff must be trained to handle the phones. They're never going to get to you if they can't get past that phone call with your receptionist. And here's what ends up happening. Bad phones are costing you a fortune. And most people don't realize it because you're not calling your office and you don't know. But trust me, I've heard thousands of calls all my years of doing this. And you're losing at least a patient a day. And if you are, and trust me, it's probably a lot more than that. But if you're only losing a patient a day and they're worth $2,000, because I don't need to overemphasize this, I'm not even talking about surgical patients you're losing. I'm just talking about like a minimally invasive patient spending $2,000. If you multiply that out by 22 working days per month and then 12 months per year, you realize that's $528,000 in lost revenues per year. So fix your phones and give yourselves a $500,000 raise. How about that? So here are the skills your receptionist needs. They have to know how to bond with the caller. It starts right that second. You have to have the right voice and the right tone and the right words to say to bond fast. They have to qualify them, but in a strategic way. And you're not doing a mini consult. You're just qualifying a little. And then she's got to credential you as the best choice. There's a good chance she's calling all over the place on the internet because she sees you and everybody else on there. So there's a good chance she's just going right down the line, calling everybody. And the receptionist has to control the call. If she doesn't, the caller controls the call, and that's never good. And then your receptionist has got to be skilled to ask for the appointment. So here's step number 2. Let's say she gets past the phone, she books an appointment. Does this prospective patient show up or not? And that's a really big deal in today's world. With everyone clicking around and being flaky, there's a really good chance you have a no-show issue. Now, a lot of you are afraid to charge for a consult because your competitors don't. You just have to decide how you're going to play this, because there's a chance you're doing free consults, but if so many of them are not showing up and they're wreaking havoc with your schedule, that's not helpful. Or they are showing up, but they're not even serious about this. They're just kind of looking around and they're not sure about any of this. Do you want a qualified consult or not? You have to decide. Some of you would rather just do the numbers game and you're confident in your closing, so go for it. But otherwise, most of you, this is a real problem, this no-show thing. So here's what I would suggest. I would suggest charging a small no-show fee. It could be $50 or $75, depending on what area you're in. But some of the bigger areas, they're charging 200, 300 for a consult fee because they've had enough of a problem with it and they're trying to weed out those who aren't serious. But here's the pearl. You always want to add value before you say the price. Because if you're just charging a consult fee and you just blurt it out, they're going to say, no, why am I going to pay that? Instead, you have your receptionist pre-frame that price. For example, she can say, oh, Sarah, let me just tell you what our process is. First, you're going to see Lisa, and she's our skincare esthetician, and she's just wonderful. And she's going to do a facial and do a skincare analysis and give you some recommendations to keep your skin looking great. And then you're going to meet with Amanda, and she's our coordinator, and she's going to meet with you first and get to know you a little bit better and give you a tour of the practice. And she's going to talk to you a bit more about Dr. Great. And then she's also going to do a computer imaging session with you, just so you can communicate what it is you want. And then she's going to have Dr. Great come in, and he's going to check out, what you two have come up with regarding what it is you're looking for. And he'll give you his clinical response on what he can do to get you to the result you want. So together you're both satisfied. And then you'll go back to Amanda and she'll go over the quote and over the surgical dates. Now, we do all of that in about an hour, and we do have a $75 consult fee. So let me just see what days we have for you. And then you just move on and you start booking. So you don't say, oh, and we charge $75 with a question mark, because that leaves it open for the caller. When quite frankly, what I teach the receptionist is you must use your voice and your confidence to keep it going so the caller just follows you. That's the point. Now, let's say you're still scared to charge a consult fee. Just at least do this. Offer a reservation fee. And what I mean by that is it's a hybrid between not charging anything and having a no-show issue or charging a fee. So here's what I say. Connie, since Dr. Great's in high demand, I'm going to need a credit card to hold your reservation. All I ask is that you give me 48 hours notice if you need to change your appointment to avoid a $75 no-show fee. Did you want to use your Visa, MasterCard, or Amex? Now, what I like about this is you're saying that Dr. Great is in high demand. And quite frankly, you're always in high demand. So that's a good reason. There's a book on this. If you give somebody a reason for why you're doing what you're doing, it makes more sense to them and they just follow you. And also, a little tip, you do want to run their card on 0, because they will give you all these flaky, pretend credit cards, because you really have to figure this out. Do you want to weed out the riffraff or do you want to spend your day with them? You have to decide. Now, here's step number 3. That's the prospective patient's consultation with you and the coordinator. I realize you all have different ways of doing this. Some of you meet with the patient first and then they just meet with the coordinator for numbers. Some of you do it the other way, where they meet with the coordinator first, then they meet with you, then they meet back with the coordinator. You have to decide what works for you. I will have podcasts on this down the road explaining how I would do it. But in the meantime, they've got to have a good consultation. So here are a couple pearls. For one, you're trying to take people from 0 to 60 in about an hour. They're supposed to meet you, learn all about you, go through your consultation and say yes. And that's just not how most people are wired. They need to get more comfortable with you. So I actually have lots of training on how do you get them more comfortable before they show up. So one thing I would suggest is having your coordinator pre-frame you before they meet you. Your coordinator's got to be your big cheerleader, and she's got to be bragging about you, about how brilliant you are, how much your patients love you, what a great father you are, whatever it is. Somebody's got to brag about you, and it can't be you. Now, I do highly recommend the coordinator make a pre-consultation call, because it's getting so important that you convert these now rather than later. So a pre-consult call, one of the objectives, the main objective, is to answer their objections now so you don't hear them at the end, like after you've spent an hour with them. So here's an example that I would do for a pre-consult call. I would just say, your coordinator would say, hello, Sarah, it's Amanda from Dr. Great's office, and I'm going to be your coordinator, and I'll be assisting you through your journey with us. So I wanted to prep you for your consultation with us to help make it a good experience for you. So just a couple things. Number one, please allow about an hour with us and then go through your process. So that takes about an hour, and I want to make sure we have enough time to answer your questions. And then I'd like you to bring your schedule because Dr. Great is in high demand and he does book out easily or quickly. So I want to make sure we can accommodate your schedule. So should you decide to move forward, we'll get some dates for you. And then number three, there's always the issue of financing because these are not cheap services. So just so you know, I'm here to help you get what you want. So I don't want financing to get in the way. We do offer great affordable pay plans, and I'll go over those with you at the time of your consultation. And then lastly, is anybody going to be helping you make this decision? Maybe it's your husband or a girlfriend or a sister. Just bring them along with you because I'd like to be able to answer their questions as well so we save time. How's that? So now you've pretty much pre-framed them to not say at the end, I don't have the money, I don't have the time, I have to check my schedule, I have to talk to my husband. We all hear those. So the point is to not hear that by pre-framing them ahead of time so they give you the real reason why they're not saying yes. And then you also want to educate the patient before they meet you. And a lot of you are getting very good at educating. And if they don't get educated from you, they're getting it from your competitors or like some of the guys are spending a lot of time on Instagram and, all of them. So, the social. And so you have to decide you're going to do that or are you going to let somebody else educate your patient, but then you say something when they get there and they say, well, that's not what I saw on the internet. So I personally would, somehow educate your patients beforehand on your philosophies and how you handle certain situations. And then with your coordinator, I would give them presentation visuals. Here's an example that comes up a lot. The prospective patient was thinking about lipo, but now they keep hearing so much about, like, let's say cool sculpting, and I'm not calling on them any non-invasive fat reduction machine. And now they're confused. Should I do surgery or should I do non-surgical? And that's a big deal. So if they're still mulling that over, you need to learn that now before you just keep pushing lipo when they're actually not sure yet if it's lipo. So I would somehow have some visuals where the coordinator can go through the differences of cool sculpting versus lipo, and then they're closer to making a decision, and then you can do the same thing. But then once she's decided that, now you can move on with your consultation because she's not still in that first phase of surgical versus non-surgical. And then your coordinator has got to professionally do the thing that most don't even bother doing, and that's ask for a decision. Nothing counts until that prospective patient hands you a credit card, period. Everything you've done to this point doesn't count until you wrap it up and get to a yes and get the credit card. So that takes some training. I will say just a little blurb about me. I do offer I train your staff, your coordinators to promote you and to close because you've got to have a really good converting person there to get to the bottom line. If you need help with that, you can just go to my website, CatherineMaley.com, or you can go to convertconsultations.com. This can't be taken lightly because this is where all of the rubber meets the road at this stage. But let's say you got that. She's wonderful. Your coordinator converted. You got the patient, or I'm sorry, she's not great. I'm sorry about that. Now we have to do step number 4. She's got to professionally follow up after the consultation because she didn't get it done. She didn't have my training yet. So you have to have a really good process called fix your follow-up. You really have to fix your follow-up. Most coordinators I have learned only make like one phone call, or they'll just send one email and then they drop it and they move on. And that's not what a professional does. Let's face it, the reality of life is things get in the way. Life is really complicated, and the prospective patient is juggling an awful lot of stuff. So there's a chance she didn't say no. She just said not yet or not now, or maybe she's confused about something. But I'll tell you what happens most of the time. It's just one more thing on her to-do list. She wants to do it, but nobody's I'll use the word pressuring because it takes a little pressure for somebody to finally make a decision rather than continue to procrastinate. Isn't that the truth? To get somebody off the couch and do something, like take action, is a monumental task. So the professional coordinator who follows up makes that happen. They stay with urgency. And there's a way to do this. And again, I have training on this, but she's got to have the right protocol, the right proven scripts, and she's got to use different communication channels to help that patient get to a yes. Because here's what always happens. The coordinator says, I don't want to be pushy. Well, here's the thing. If you don't want to be pushy, then you might as well say goodbye to the patient because you're not going to even follow up with them. So what's the point? Like, why did you just go to all that trouble if you're not going to follow up? However, if you follow up and you do it in a way that I would show you in my club, I'll tell you what, they end up respecting you. The prospective patient realizes, you really are professional. You take this seriously and you care about me because you keep connecting with me. Most don't. That's where your leverage is. That's how you can dominate your marketplace. Build relationships with people so they feel like you care about them, and then they'll care about giving you their credit card. So here's the point. Incoming leads is serious business, and you just can't be mediocre or average about it. You really need skilled professionals to make that happen. So now I can say, now that that happened, everybody was on their game. This patient became a real patient. They had surgery or they had things done, and they're just ecstatic. Well, here's step number 5. Hang on to them. How big would your practice be if you didn't lose any patients? I don't understand this, but most of you just move on to the next patient. It's a one and done kind of mentality, and you just can't be like that in today's world. Current patients who already know, like, and trust you, they're a given. Those are your laydowns because they already gave you money once, and they'll give you money again if you just nurture those relationships. They'll also give you great reviews because the ones who are unhappy will give you terrible reviews. So the ones that are happy, you want to make sure they're giving you the good ones. And they're also the ones who are going to give you the word of mouth referrals. Because isn't it a lot easier to convert the word of mouth referrals than it is that stranger patient who doesn't know you from Adam? I mean, how would you like to spend all day? I'm sure you do it now. You spend all day with internet patients. They're frowning at you because they're squirming. They don't know you. They're uncomfortable already with just something about themselves. And now they have to get to know you, get to know your staff. That's so awkward. So it's not easy. How would you like to have a whole day of patients word of mouth referrals who came in from your current patients who have raved about you, and they're already open, they're smiling at you, they're listening to what you say, and they're also not as price sensitive. And you know why? Because your patients have pre-framed you as the best choice. So now it's not all about price. It's about you're the best. And you know what's great about that? They've already seen your results face to face. They're standing in front of their friend or their girlfriend or their whatever, their sister or their colleague. They see the result they got and how happy they are, and now they want the same thing. And we all know it's a whole lot cheaper to keep a patient than it is to go find a new one. Now, if you're not sure about this, where this fits into your practice, I highly recommend you do this exercise, and it's very simple. As soon as you get off this call or podcast, have your staff pull up the surgery schedule and look at the last 40 to 100 surgeries you did. And just have them jot down what was the name of the patient, what procedure did they have, what was the referral source, and then just little notes like if they were female, male, if their zip code, and their age. What you will find, because I've done this all over the United States for years, here's what you'll find. Depending on the age of your practice, typically, let's say it's a practice that's been around like 5 to 10 years. Then there's a practice that's like 10 to 20 and then 20 plus. The 5 to 10, most of them will be the internet, but the majority will still be word of mouth if you've been around at all. The majority will always be word of mouth when you're brand new because that's how you build the darn thing. Now, some of you say, no, I do a great job on social. Well, okay, so you can do that, but then those will become word of mouth for you. Then the other group, the ones who have been in practice for a while, the majority of those should be like 50% should be word of mouth. And then the ones who have been around for 20 plus years, the majority or the ratio should be about 70 word of mouth. If it's not, that means you're working too hard. That means you are ignoring the patients who like you, and you are spending all of your time, money, and effort going after the new patients because I don't know why. Because it's a shiny object. I don't know why, but that's the harder way to do this. So here's the mantra. Retention is the new patient attraction strategy. It really is a lot cheaper to hang on to your patients than go find new ones. I can't say it enough. So then you say, well, how do I do that? Well, you've got a huge email list, and hopefully you've been collecting cell phones. If you haven't, please collect cell phones because texting is going to take over the world if it hasn't already. So you want to communicate regularly with your patients via email. You can also start a VIP club for your favorite patients, or you could just start a loyalty program. I have one of my own, and it works beautifully. And then you can also do patient appreciation events. I say FaceTime. FaceTime is the absolute best marketing strategy in the world because they might see people on the internet and see them on YouTube, even if they saw them on the media, but nothing compares to meeting somebody face to face where you can see, smell, touch, hear them. So patient appreciation events are brilliant. So to wrap this up, as a team, I would get together and fine tune each step in your prospective patient flow and the experience they have with you. So, what happens when they call you, when somebody opts in, when they DM you, do they show or no show? How can we avoid the no shows? How is their consultation with you? Really go through each of the steps and figure out, is your consultation process as good as it can be? Or you're running them all over the place, is it complicated? Also, if they didn't book, what's our follow-up after the consultation? Do we have a protocol in place? And then, of course, you want to retain that patient because here's the bottom line. The patient flow experience, when you get good at that, that's what takes the patient from a new patient to a raving fan. And that's what you build your practice on, raving fans who return, refer, review, buy your retail stuff, and stay with you. So that is it. I hope you enjoyed that. And please subscribe to Beauty in the Biz. And of course, I really would appreciate you sharing this with your staff and your colleagues because I sure would like to grow this. I have a lot more coming up. And then if you'd follow me on Instagram, that'd be nice. It's Catherine Maley, MBA. So thanks so much. I will see you again.
We hope you found valuable insight on this episode of Beauty in the Biz. For more episodes, tools, and Catherine's free book, visit www.catherinemaley.com. That's www.catherinemaley.com. And be sure to subscribe to get the latest practice building strategies delivered to you. And don't forget to share this Beauty in the Biz podcast with your staff and colleagues.